Kuzu Consult. Kuzu Consult is a blockchain consultancy firm. So in this presentation, I'm here to talk about Algorand smart contracts and how Algorand smart contracts can be used. Now, Algorand smart contracts are implemented using a new language called Teal. Now, Teal stands for Transaction Execution Approval Language. As the name implies, it's being used for making transactions. You can make transactions such as withdrawals, withdrawing from an account, from your account, or transferring micro-algos from one account to another. Now, Teal is an assembly language, and that might be a hindrance to new developers coming into the blockchain industry. Not many would want to write in an assembly language, which is why Teal or Algorand has made an upgrade with necessary updates, which will enable us to use other programming languages such as Python to write our smart contracts. So we do not necessarily have to write our Algorand smart contracts using Teal, which is an assembly language. We can use it, or you can use Python directly to do it through the use of PyTeal. Now, PyTeal is a Python language binding for writing Algorand smart contracts. What this does is you can write your Python code or Python program, which will then be compiled and converted back to Teal language without any stress. So instead of writing it in Teal directly, which is an assembly language, you might not want to do that. You can use Python through the use of PyTeal. Now, in this demo presentation, we're going to make a transaction, a withdrawal transaction, where a receiver will be able to withdraw funds from his or her account. So to do that, the first thing we're going to need is an account. We definitely need an account to make a transaction. Here I have my Visual Studio Code opened. So I'm going to use it and create a new file, a new Python file, which will then be used to create an account, and then we'll create another file or program to make that transaction. To do this, you must install the necessary SDKs and tools needed to help you write this smart contract. I'm going to create a new file and I'm going to create a new folder where this file will be inside. I'm going to call this PyTeal transaction. Oops, I'm going to rename it PyTeal transaction. So we're trying to create an account, so I'm going to name this create account. And of course, this is going to be a Python program. So I'm going to save it as a Python file. Of course, I could just do this by simply adding the .py extension to this. Well, that would recognize it as a Python file because that's the extension of Python programs. Or I could just do it directly like this, the way I did it here. Just create a Python, save it as a Python file. So to get started, like I said earlier, we definitely need to install the necessary tools or SDKs needed. I already have my SDKs installed, such as the Algo SDK and PyTeal SDK. So the first thing we're going to do is import our Algo SDK. Going to import an account and then encoding. So what this does is I'm going to use this account to create an account, and then this encoding to ensure or test if that account is valid or not. So we're going to need two things for this: a private key and an address. So this is basically all I need. This is basically all I need to generate an account. Private key and an address. I've already done this, so I already have my address and my private key available. So I will not run this program to avoid me having another account or another address. So if you're following along, this is all you need to do to create an address. And run this to print out your address and see what your address will look like, or your private key. Whichever one you choose to run will be printed out for you. So this is basically all you need. Although I already have my address, so I'm not going to run this program. So having done this, we're going to move into the next stage, which is making a transaction. I'm going to head over here and then create a new file like we did, and save it as PyTeal withdrawal. Save it as a Python file as usual. So like we did here in the create account, the first thing we did was to import the necessary SDKs needed. The same thing is going to be done for this. I'm going to import my PyTeal and run my PyTeal codes. Mind you, it's the SDKs that enables me to write and compile my PyTeal program using Python. I'm going to import from PyTeal. Import. As you can see, my intelligence is already helping out. It predicts what I'm trying to write and then give me options, which actually makes development faster and better. So I'm going to create a transaction, or rather a withdrawal transaction. I could just start writing the codes directly, but that would not help because for instance, I would want to create another program or file inside this, and I want it to do the same thing as withdrawing from an account or an address. I would not want to rewrite it all over again, so I could just create a function or a method and have that code inside. So if I want to call it somewhere else, I could just make reference or call that function that I created instead of having to write it again. So this helps with reusability. That is one of the core functions or uses of creating methods or functions. I'm going to create a function called bank account and pass in a parameter, a receiver parameter. So having done that, I'm going to definitely know what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to make a transaction, payment. And then transaction transaction.type enum. This is a built-in function, mind you, from the PyTeal that we imported. So transaction type. So this is all I need for the first step. This payment, I'm trying to make a payment transaction. That is the type of transaction I'm trying to make a payment. I'm going to have a list or an enum of the type of transaction I'm trying to have, which is type enum, and then the transaction type dot payment, which is payment transaction which I'm trying to make. Next thing is, okay, how many transactions am I trying to make? I'm trying to make one single transaction, one single withdrawal. So a single transaction, um, global dot group size. This will get the size or the number of transactions I'm trying to make. Just one. Next thing I'm going to do is who is the receiver? Who am I making this transaction to? Having the address. Like I said earlier, I already have my address printed out. That was why I did not run that create accounts file or program I created. So having done this, to get the type of the receiver, I'm having a transaction.receiver built-in function and then address. This is address passing the receiver parameter that I have in from my function. So the next thing, we're going to ensure there is no closeout transaction. No closeout address. What this ensures is the transaction should not be completed if anything happens along the way. If you have a fault or an error, the transaction will not be completed. Same thing goes for rekeying. Now rekeying transaction.closeout address, remainder to. So with this done, I need to have an acceptable fee, an acceptable amount that has to be transferred. It's just a condition that has to be met before this transaction will be completed. Acceptable fee, transaction.fee. The transaction fee should not be less than or equal to 1,000. Mind you, this means 1,000 micro algos because we are dealing with micro algos here in this transaction. So this is basically all we need for this method. The next thing we need to do is to return what we've done. Mind you, this return statement, what this return statement does is it's going to run what we have passed in before our transaction or our program will close or end or stop. So it's going to run what is before it and then end the program or close the program. We're going to group it. That is what this AND is used for. This AND basically groups in what we want to use from all the parameters we have in here. So we have our is payment, and then a single transaction, its receiver, no closeout address, and then no rekeying. We can see our intelligence is helping us out, which is making development easier and faster. So with this done, that's all we need for our function. So I'm going to create another parameter called program. Now this program is going to pass in our bank account function. Of course, our bank account function must have a receiver, so we definitely need to pass in the address of our receiver. That is where this create account that we did earlier on will come into place. That address you generated will be what we're going to pass into. Like I said, I've already created one before, so I'm just going to use it. This is the address. I'm going to copy it and then paste it right here. That's all I need. And then print out my program. But before then, remember, I'm using PyTeal, which then compiles and converts from Python to Teal. So I'm going to definitely have to pass in this compile Teal statement, which will then compile what we have from Python to Teal. This is a statement that compiles everything for us. So we can then pass in our program and then mode of application. I'm going to run this and hopefully we would not have any error or problem along the way. Okay, so we have an error. The function object has no attributes. Type of. So where could that be? So where do we have type of? So everything here is okay. Everything here looks okay. Everything here is okay. Everything here is okay. All good. So our program looks right. Right, time to debug. Let me try this. Alright, so our problem was from the transaction fee. It's a built-in function. All these are built-in functions, and I forgot to pass in the bracket which identifies it as a function. So let me clear everything out and then run it again. So tada! We have our Teal language written out for us from PyTeal. So I'm going to copy this. Basically, if you're going to write it in Teal directly, this is what you are going to do. This is what you are going to write. So I'm going to head back here and then paste what we've done. If we're writing in Teal directly, this is what we would have written. This Pragma version 2 is a header, then our transaction type, the group size we wrote, the transaction receiver, close remainder to global zero address, and then our transaction fee, 1000 micro algos. So that is it for this presentation about how to write in PyTeal. So thank you and goodbye for now.